In the 5th year of being Ethan's canary, news broke about his engagement. I stared at the contract nearing its expiration, fully aware that the warm Ethan had turned into nothing more than a string of cold numbers in my bank account. I left behind a note and fled in the dead of night. Dear Ethan, by the time you read this note, our contract will have expired. Wishing you a happy marriage. 3 days later, while I was happily shopping during the day, I found a chain around my ankle at night. In the darkness, the man's voice was low and chilling. Lily, you've been very naughty. I was on the verge of striking it rich. I eagerly counted the days. 3 more. Just 3 more days, and my contract with Ethan would be over according to the agreement. In addition to the monthly allowance, I'd also receive a $5 million bonus at the end of the 5 years. $5 million, that's enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Ding dong. The little alarm clock I bought chimed as it struck midnight. Fantastic, only 2 days left. I reset the alarm, ready for it to ring 2 more times. As I fiddled with it, the man behind me grew impatient. His hoarse voice cut through the air. Baby, stop playing with that broken clock. Before I could react, his long arm reached over and pulled me into his embrace. His warm fingertips brushed over my brows and eyes. Why are you so energetic these last 2 days? Then he kissed me. A searing kiss that left me dazed and dizzy. I couldn't understand it. 5 years together, and he was still this intense. What happened to relationships cooling off over time? Utter nonsense, especially today. He had just returned from a business trip. Anyone who knew would think he'd been gone for a week. Those who didn't might assume it had been a year. He got home at 9, and now it was midnight. Who's the one with all the energy, him or me? He coaxed, be good. Call me husband. I blinked, tears clinging to my lashes, my vision blurry. I pouted, husband, please. His eyes darkened. Baby, say it one more time. Feeling wronged, I whimpered, husband. Ugh, what a liar. He promised to let me go. Big fat liar too. My name is Lily, and I'm Ethan's secret lover. Well, secret is a bit of an exaggeration. All his friends know who I am. They even politely address me as sis-in-law when they see me. I've tried countless times to get them to stop. Don't call me that. But they never listen. Sis-in-law this, sis-in-law that. It's become such a habit, it was bound to cause trouble. Sure enough, 6 months ago, one of Ethan's childhood friends slipped up and mentioned me at a family gathering. That's how his parents found out about my existence. Ethan brought me home to face the music. To my surprise, his parents were actually quite nice. They didn't make things difficult for me. His mom even gave me a bracelet and insisted I wear it, telling me that Ethan could be a handful and asking me to be patient with him. What she didn't know was that her son had already paid for my patience. Ethan gave me $10,000 a month, plus holiday bonuses and year-end rewards. I was easily pulling in over 6 figures annually. With a boss this generous, who wouldn't be patient? And he wasn't just any boss, he cared about his employees' physical and emotional well-being. For example, when we got home, he kissed my neck and asked softly, "What did my mom say to you? Baby, did you two get along?" I replied matter-of-factly, "It was fine. Pretty pleasant, actually." He visibly relaxed. That's good. Will I see them often in the future? I asked. If so, I'd need to learn about his family's preferences. After all, I aim to be a stellar employee. Ethan pulled me onto the dining table. We'll visit during holidays, but we won't live with them. Having elders around would be inconvenient. True, it could be inconvenient. I looked down at his messy hair and thought quietly to myself. 3. By the time I woke up, it was already noon. After washing up, I started tidying the apartment. Ethan called me for lunch after cooking, but I'd been busy sorting through a pile of useless junk to throw away. I planned to take the garbage downstairs later. I tossed an ugly ceramic doll into the trash bag, when suddenly Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind. "What are you doing?" "Throwing out garbage." He took the doll from my hand. There were two of them, a boy and a girl, both equally hideous. We had made them 4 years ago during a trip. Ever since, they'd sat on the nightstand. I hated how ugly they were and wanted to put them away, but Ethan insisted on keeping them out in plain sight for all to see. I threw away the boy doll, the one I made. He lightly bit my neck. "Baby, this isn't trash." I remained unmoved. He sighed. "If you really don't like them, just put them away. Don't throw them out." He retrieved the ceramic doll from the trash bag and began digging out everything else I had tossed. "Don't you like the felted wool? Why throw away the doll? This poor little dog doesn't want to end up in the trash." As he pulled out item after item, he muttered under his breath. In the end, my garbage bag was nearly empty, only a few scraps of paper remained. I was dumbfounded. I'd spent so much time organizing trash, and he had undone all my hard work. Everything was returned to its original place. Then Ethan scooped me up in his arms. "Dinner's getting cold. Let's eat first, baby." For I booked a flight for the morning after tomorrow. Only 2 days left. I'd originally planned to clean out my belongings so I could leave without a trace. But Ethan wouldn't let me throw anything away. I hung my head, feeling dejected. "Did I hurt you last night?" Ethan asked as he pulled me onto his lap. He was so clingy, even during a meal. I couldn't stand it. "Why is baby upset today?" he asked. "I'm not upset," I corrected him. He nodded absent-mindedly. Not upset." "Baby, open your mouth." He fed me a piece of sweet and sour pork, my favorite. The tangy and sweet flavor spread across my tongue. Delicious. Ethan was really good at cooking. I wouldn't be able to eat his sweet and sour pork anymore. I decided to eat a little more today. I jumped off his lap and sat in the empty seat next to him. He propped his chin in one hand, watching me. Seeing me eat properly, he reached over and ruffled my hair. "Good girl, Lily. Eat slowly. If you want more, your husband will make it for you anytime." I bit my chopsticks and shook my head. No, I wouldn't be able to have it again. The sunlight today was incredible. Warm golden rays flooded the room, even softening the chill of the northern wind. I was lying on Ethan's lap, playing a game. He was wearing glasses and reading a book. When my game ended, I started fiddling with the golden chain dangling from his neck. He looked down and met my gaze. I had bought those glasses for him. They didn't have a prescription just for aesthetics. They suited Ethan perfectly. When he wore them, he looked like a refined rogue. Especially now, the way he lazily glanced at me with indifference. So handsome. I swallowed hard. "Ethan." His attention didn't waver from his book. He responded casually, He wasn't looking at me. I tugged lightly on his sleeve. "Mr. Ethan." Still no response. Was that book more interesting than me? I was annoyed. Furious, even. I extended my mischievous little hand and pouted, "Dear Ethan, won't you pay attention to Lily?" His gaze darkened, and he tossed me onto the couch. The book landed on my face, blocking my view. "No, this can't be happening," I wanted to protest, but he couldn't hear me. He leaned in, his voice low. "What does baby Lily want me to do, In the dead of night, my alarm woke me up. Groggily, I reached out to turn it off. But before I could, it stopped. A pair of warm hands covered my ears. Ethan whispered softly, "Go back to sleep, baby. I'll take care of it." "Who sets an alarm for midnight just to wake themselves up every day?" he muttered, exasperated. I was too sleepy to answer. I barely heard him sigh and say, "You're such an idiot. Baby, just one more day." One more day for what? I didn't know. I fell back asleep. One more day before I'd leave. On the last day, I woke up unusually early. Ethan had a habit of morning workouts. Still in my pajamas, I wandered into the gym. He was lifting weights. Seeing me, he raised an eyebrow. "Baby, why are you up so early today?" I walked up to him. "I wanted to keep you company. Don't you want me to join you?" He hooked an arm around my waist. "How would you like to keep me company?" I blinked innocently. "How about push-ups with you?" He started doing push-ups. For every one he completed, I rewarded him with a kiss. But soon, things got a little out of hand. Breakfast was takeout. Lunch was takeout. Dinner almost wasn't takeout. Ethan, suddenly inspired, tied an apron around me and insisted I cook. I was fumbling around in the kitchen. Washing vegetables was such a hassle. I had no choice but to ask the other person in the room for help. He said he wouldn't help for free and demanded advanced payment. The payment took a while. I was starving, my stomach practically sticking to my back, and he still wasn't done. I gave in. "Ethan, I'm so hungry." He picked up his phone, kissed me, and said, "Hold on, I'll order takeout." That night, I didn't hear the bedroom alarm. At midnight, Miss Melody was still in the kitchen. The flight was at 10 a.m. At 7:30, I dragged myself out of bed, my legs aching. Thankfully, Ethan wasn't there. On the nightstand, I found a note. "Baby, I had to step out for something. I'll be back around 10:30. If you wake up early, don't forget to have breakfast." We had gone to bed past 1 a.m. Normally, I wouldn't wake up before 11. But Ethan still left me a note. When we first started dating, we didn't live together. We always stayed at hotels. One morning, I woke up early, and he had left for something unexpected. There was no message, no notification. I sat on the bed, hugging my knees, staring into space. My stomach growled. The room was eerily quiet. Half an hour later, he returned. I was still in the same position. He gently wrapped his arms around me. "Lily, what's wrong?" I tilted my head up. His face was obscured by the shifting light and shadows. "I thought you didn't want me anymore," I said. From then on, he always left me a note. That habit continued to this day. I checked my phone and confirmed the date. December 21st, 2024. Winter solstice. It was on the winter solstice 5 years ago that we got together. 5 years. It was over. I got out of bed. My waist and legs were still sore. The trash I had packed up last time couldn't be thrown out. He said that as long as it was in his house, it belonged to him. There wasn't much of my own stuff left. I packed a few clothes into a 24-inch suitcase, grabbed my ID, and took a final look around the house I had lived in for 5 years. Every corner of this place held memories of us. I flipped over his note and wrote my goodbye on the back. "Ethan, by the time you read this note, our contract will have expired. Wishing you a happy marriage. I pressed the note down with a glass, to keep it from being carried away by the wind. Opening the ride-hailing app, I set my destination to the airport. Pulling my suitcase, I closed the door behind me for the last time. While waiting for my flight, I messaged Ethan's personal assistant. "Transfer me the money, Miss Lily, how much do you need?" I typed back, $5 million. It was promised to me the next second. My bank account showed the deposit of $5 million. I stared at the zeros in the balance, taking a deep breath. Sigh, warm and caring Ethan had now turned into a cold string of numbers in my bank account. No one would ever gently call me baby again. But it's okay. With $5 million, I can hire plenty of people to call me baby around the clock. The flight wasn't delayed and left on time. I deleted everything and everyone related to Ethan, turning my head to look out the window at the rolling clouds and the city fading into the distance. Taking a deep breath, I told myself, someone once said to me, "Lily, you need to be happy." I have to be happy, don't I? The plane encountered turbulence a few times due to air currents. By the time I landed, I felt awful. After checking into my hotel, I decided to visit the hospital. The motion sickness was terrible, and I couldn't stop feeling nauseous. I wasn't sure what was going on. Before I knew it, the doctor across from me adjusted his glasses and said, "Nausea and vomiting in early pregnancy are normal. You can take some vitamin B6 to help." I froze. What? The doctor, already occupied with the next patient, said dismissively, "You're fine." Next, lowering my gaze, I placed a hand on my stomach. It felt as flat as usual. I hesitated before asking, "Doctor, where should I go if I don't want to keep the baby?" When things go wrong, even drinking water can feel like choking on it. I was abroad, and the country I was in had strict laws requiring a mandatory 7-day waiting period for termination, followed by additional paperwork. It was a hassle. To avoid any more red tape, I decided to return home. But not to New York. Ethan was there. Instead, I picked a tourist-friendly city with good medical facilities and booked a flight. The suitcase I had just unpacked was back in my hand as I made my way back home, feeling defeated. The round trip took an entire day. Collapsing in the hotel bed, I decided to rest for a day before going to the hospital. I scheduled the procedure and went to bed feeling at ease. That night, I dreamt of a tiny, adorable child waving at me. He called out cheerfully, "Mommy, Mommy, I love you so much." He threw himself into my arms, a small and soft bundle of joy. I whispered, "Mommy doesn't want a baby right now. Maybe you can come back later, okay? Just promise me, Mommy," he pleaded, "that when you're ready for a baby, you'll let me know so I can prepare. Don't let anyone else take my spot." When I woke up, it was already daylight. I touched the corner of my eye. Wet. Turns out, I had been crying. When you're in a bad mood, staying indoors only makes it worse. I spontaneously picked a tourist spot and headed out. Along the way, I indulged in all kinds of food and drinks, ignoring any dietary restrictions. Feeling stuffed, I stopped at a lakeside restaurant to rest. My seat was by the window. It was a rare snowy day in this southern city. Snowflakes fell onto the lake, melting instantly. Despite it being the off-season, the tourist spot was crowded, bustling with people. This city seemed like a very livable place. Sipping my juice, I idly browsed through the local real estate and cost of living data. Well, never mind. Not so livable after all. Turns out, my savings wouldn't get me far. Buying a decent place in a good neighborhood would eat up most of my money. I still had a life to live, and I wasn't exactly frugal. Sighing, I leaned back in my chair. forget it. I'd pick another city. I couldn't help but think of Ethan's luxurious penthouse in New York. Selling me wouldn't even cover the down payment on a place like that. Darn those filthy rich people. Annoyed, I decided not to use the discount for my meal. The waiter looked at me, puzzled. Are you sure you don't want to use the 10 Christmas special discount? I nodded firmly. Charge me full price. The waiter, clearly bewildered by my foolishness, gave me a look as if I were an idiot. After paying, I stared at the expense notification and the 8 digits still sitting comfortably in my bank account. I should feel happy. Am I happy now? I think I am. But a sense of confusion lingered. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Anything felt like it could be right, and yet everything felt wrong. I opened my photo gallery and scrolled all the way to the bottom. The old photos had been transferred between so many phones that the quality was blurry, restored and blurred again. But it couldn't hide the smile on my face as I posed for the camera, making a peace sign with my fingers. I looked so radiant. It felt like I was transported back to that day 10 years ago. Excited about having my first phone, I had shouted eagerly, "Hurry up and take my picture, make sure I look good," from a distance. Someone holding the phone coughed and replied helplessly, "Lily, stop moving." "I'll take it." How mean. They should have taken a selfie with me. I bought a ton of things, food, toys, and other trinkets, and brought them back to the hotel, piling them onto the table. But staying in a hotel long term wasn't a viable solution. I needed a home to put my stuff in. Slowly pondering which city I should settle down in, I grabbed my pajamas and headed for the shower. The water from the shower head gushed down, warm and soothing. As the steam filled the bathroom, my thoughts wandered. South? North? Big city? Small town? Coastal? Inland? After roughly outlining the conditions I wanted, I casually threw on a bathrobe, towel-dried my hair, and walked out of the bathroom. Suddenly, I felt like something was slightly off. Before I went to shower, the lights in the room were on. Why were they off now? Using the light from the bathroom, I noticed my suitcase, which I had left haphazardly in the corner. Now, it was neatly placed against the wall, as if arranged by someone with obsessive-compulsive tendencies, each of the 4 wheels aligned perfectly. My mind rang with alarm bells as I dashed back into the bathroom. But it was too late. A hand wrapped around my waist from behind. I froze, my entire body stiffening. A tie was wrapped around my eyes, taking away my vision. A faint woody aroma mixed with the heavy scent of rose-scented body wash wafted into my nose. It was a very subtle fragrance, my choice of sandalwood. I was lifted and placed on the edge of the bed. Warm hands cupped my feet. Click. Cold metal shackles fastened around my ankle. My voice trembled. "Ethan." In the darkness, no one replied. The only response was the faint, cool touch of lips pressing against the top of my foot. "Perfect," a man's hoarse voice murmured. I clutched the blanket tightly, trying to retreat. He tugged at the chain, and the sound of delicate bells and clinking metal filled the silence. "Lily, have you thought of a reason yet? I'm very angry right now. You need to make it up to me. If you can't, how about I lock you up? Lily, you've been in the room I prepared for you, haven't you? You know, I've wanted to do this for a long time." Ethan's house had a hidden room. I had been in it once. It was during the 3rd month of us living together. I always felt like something was off about the layout of his house, as though there was a missing room. One day, out of boredom, I started poking around. And then I found it. In his bedroom closet, which was unusually large and suspiciously empty. with a bit of force, I managed to push it open. I hesitated, unsure if I should enter, fearful that some grim fairy tale like Bluebeard might play out in real life. But in the end, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped inside. What I found was far from what I expected. There were no gruesome crime scenes, no jars of formaldehyde. Instead, it was a pink and white, teen girl-style room, filled with cutesy stuffed animals. I was stunned that Ethan would be into this kind of aesthetic and began to look around the room. But it didn't take long for me to notice something unsettling. The walls and even the bed were covered with photos of me. From normal, everyday shots to ones that felt far too intimate, there were so many of them. My heart pounded like a drum as I quickly averted my gaze. On the bed, there was a chain. Its end was bolted to the wall. The chain was thick enough that if someone were locked in it, escape would be impossible. I opened a notebook on the desk. The first page read, "I wonder if Lily will like this room. I want to lock her up in here, so she can only ever see me for the rest of her life." That sentence had been crossed out, replaced with, "I can't lock her up. She wouldn't like it." I carefully put everything back in place and quietly left, pretending I didn't know anything. That evening, Ethan opened the closet before he went to shower. I watched him secretly and noticed he lingered in front of it longer than usual. After his shower, he interlocked our fingers and kissed away the tears that had unknowingly gathered at the corners of my eyes. "Lily, are you my good girl?" he asked. I whimpered, "I am." He seemed satisfied. "Then you have to stay my good girl, always. Otherwise." "Otherwise what?" I didn't ask. My sobs came in broken fragments as he held me tightly. "Baby, I don't want to force you. I'll give you time. Try to love me, okay?" "Baby, can't think of a reason?" "Let me help you come up with a few." My hair was still damp. Ethan found a hairdryer and patiently began drying it for me. The room was bright now, fully lit. I sat on his lap as he ran his fingers through my hair, gently massaging my scalp. "Did you sneak out because you wanted to explore, but were afraid I wouldn't have time to go with you?" I bit my lip and shook my head. "Are you mad at me for hurting you the other day, so you decided to teach me a lesson by leaving?" I shook my head again. Ethan gently tilted my head to face him. He sighed, "Is it because you're pregnant?" "Baby, I'm sorry. I was so busy last month that I didn't make it to the doctor's appointment. I didn't know this would happen. When we first got together, I had taken birth control pills, but he found out." Ethan, with a cold expression, confiscated my pills and made me accompany him to get a vasectomy. Post-surgery, he was supposed to go for follow-ups every 6 months. Last month, he'd been swamped with work, and after 5 years without any accidents, he'd skipped the appointment. He turned off the hairdryer and buried his face in my now dry hair. "I did think about using a child to tie you to me, but this time, it really was an accident." I opened my mouth, wanting to tell him it wasn't true. I hadn't known I was pregnant when I left. But Ethan pressed his thumb against my lips. "Melody, you better accept this reason. Don't make me angry." I fell silent, my chest heavy with suffocating discomfort. After a long time, I spoke hoarsely, "We're not together anymore. I'll take care of the baby myself." He tilted my chin up, a smile playing on his lips. "Cancel the abortion appointment, Lily. Be a good girl." I lowered my head, fiddling with my phone. Even if I didn't cancel it, I wouldn't make it to the clinic tomorrow. No point wasting the staff's time. After confirming the cancellation, Ethan kissed me on the cheek. "Good girl." The room was dark with the lights off, pitch black, making it impossible to see anything. I couldn't sleep. I stared blankly at the sliver of moonlight peeking through the gap in the curtains. It stretched across the floor, forming a long strip that extended from the window to the edge of the bed. I reached out, letting my fingertips touch the moonlight. But moonlight can't be caught. It slipped right through my fingers, cool and fleeting, just like the cold winter outside the window. What was I supposed to do next? Should I just stay quietly by Ethan's side forever? I turned my back to him, letting my mind go blank. Perhaps that wouldn't be so bad after all. My thoughts were interrupted when warmth enveloped my palm. I snapped back to reality. It was Ethan holding my hand. His body temperature was higher than mine, and the heat radiated from him in waves. His other hand slipped around my waist, resting protectively over my stomach. "Love, don't do something you'll regret. If, in a month, you truly don't want this child, I'll go to the hospital with you," he said, his voice low and muffled. "But remember, this is the only family you're blood related to." I rested my hand on my stomach. It was so small, without any movement yet. If not for that single piece of paper confirming it, who would even know it existed? Ethan's embrace tightened. Melody was right. You can be so stubborn. Hearing that familiar yet distant name, I turned to look at him. He leaned over me and kissed me. Instinctively, I wrapped my arms around his neck to respond. Breathing heavily, he brushed the stray strands of hair from my face. "Lily, I only paid for 5 years of your time. That improper arrangement has ended. Can I pursue you properly now?" The way Ethan and I ended up together was anything but proper. To put it bluntly, I sold myself. During my sophomore year of college, I was desperate for money. Desperate to the point of working cheap, soul-crushing jobs in my spare time. Desperate to the point where I took out loans from every payday lender I could find. Desperate because the hospital bills kept piling up. My sister was in the ICU, struggling for her life. I had already sold the house our parents left us, along with anything else of value. When my sister was conscious, she would hold my hand and say, "Lily, stop trying to save me. Use the money to take care of yourself instead." But how could I give up on saving her? I sat outside the hospital room, hugging my knees and crying silently. I didn't dare make a sound, afraid she might hear me. In a moment of hopelessness, I posted a message on social media, a last-ditch cry for help, hoping someone might be willing to lend me some money. Not long after, a man from my contacts messaged me. I couldn't remember when I had added him, maybe during a freshman event, or perhaps he was a supplier for something my professor had me purchase. His profile picture was a generic landscape, the kind middle-aged men use. His feed showed photos of his wife and daughter, the picture of a family man. He messaged me, "Available?" My hands went cold as I stared at the red light of the operating room down the hall. I knew what he meant. I don't even remember how I typed out my response. I replied, "Yes." Clutching my phone tightly, I curled into myself, hugging my knees as uncontrollable tears streamed down my face. The next day, I returned to school. I pulled myself together, applied flawless makeup, and took a bus followed by a subway to arrive at the hotel. When I opened the door, the man waiting inside wasn't the middle-aged family man I had expected. Instead, it was a young man, someone vaguely familiar, though I couldn't place him. But none of that mattered anymore. After confirming I was in the right room, I walked toward him. He was seated on the couch, surrounded by a haze of cigarette smoke. He looked irritated, the ashtray in front of him holding 3 burned-out cigarettes, with a 4th burning between his fingers. He wasn't smoking it, just letting it burn. I softly asked, "Where's Mr. King?" "He's not coming," the man replied. Boldly, I sat on his lap, wrapping my arms around his neck. "So, are you my company for tonight?" His body stiffened, the irritation on his face deepening. He pushed me away, saying, "Sit properly. Don't move around." I obediently shifted to the side. He snuffed out the cigarette he hadn't smoked and spoke to me. "I'll pay for your sister's medical bills and clear your loans. Don't do this again." I was stunned. Lowering my gaze, I asked, "Then what do you want from me?" "Go back to class and focus on your studies. Finals are coming up. Don't fail," he said. We exchanged contact information. When he reached out, it was always about mundane things, asking if I'd had lunch or how my studies were going. Sometimes, he'd send me random photos with captions like, "Today's clouds look like a puppy." I replied to every message thoroughly. I didn't know who he was, only that my sister's medical expenses were truly taken care of, along with the tens of thousands I owed in loans. I spent my days shuttling between the hospital and school, preparing for finals while visiting my sister. After finishing my last exam, I rushed off to a part-time job. On my way out of campus, I accidentally bumped into someone and fell. The person reached out to help me up, and I hurriedly apologized. "I'm so sorry," the man helping me asked, "in such a hurry, where are you headed?" I had only seen my benefactor once, but I knew I'd never forget him for the rest of my life. I looked up at him and said, "I'm heading to a part-time job." He nodded thoughtfully. "I just finished my exams too. I have some free time now." Was he a student at my school as well? Did he mean he wanted me to spend time with him? Understanding the priorities, I pulled out my phone, intending to cancel my shift. But he grabbed my hand and led me out of the campus instead. His hands were large and warm, completely enveloping mine. That was the first time we held hands. He asked, "Where's the location?" "I'll go with you." We spent the entire afternoon handing out flyers. Ethan, who could effortlessly pay off my massive debt without batting an eye, clearly came from a wealthy family. This kind of labor-intensive work was probably something he had never done before. Yet, he patiently helped me distribute half the flyers. When we finished, he bought me a cup of milk tea crispy brulee milk foam, 70 sugar. It was very sweet. "Why not work as a tutor?" he asked. "I do, just not today," I replied. He sighed. "Are you really that short on money?" I nodded. After he paid for my sister's medical bills, there wasn't much else I needed to spend money on. But I was still afraid of more unexpected incidents. He gently ruffled my hair. "I'll give you the money. Don't wear yourself out like this. What if you end up in the hospital before your sister gets discharged?" I received a 10,000 transfer from him. I clutched my phone tightly and said nothing. At that time, I still didn't know his name. His name was Ethan. He was rather well known at school, a senior with a good family background and striking looks. He had hosted a few campus events before. The university was so big that news like this seldom reached me. I didn't learn his name until 2 months after our final exams had ended. I stayed on campus, and he came looking for me. One of his classmates spotted him and casually asked, "Ethan, you haven't gone home yet? Spending time with your girlfriend?" He responded casually while holding my hand tightly. "Yeah, she's staying on campus." That day, we wandered around the food market, strolled the streets, and went to the movies. I deliberately picked a showtime that would end just before the campus curfew. Halfway through the movie, I rested my head on his shoulder and pretended to fall asleep. Based on what I knew about him, he wouldn't wake me up. But that day, he lightly patted my shoulder. "Lily, wake up. We won't make it back to campus in time. Still groggy, I wrapped my arms around his neck. I'm so tired, he softly said, sleep in the car, okay? Be good. I dragged it out for as long as I could, eventually missing the campus curfew. Since I couldn't get back in, I asked him to take me to a hotel. Ethan was a very perceptive person. He could tell what I was thinking. He gazed at me for a long time. You don't have to do this, he said. Clinging to his arm, I feigned ignorance. If you don't take me to a hotel, are you expecting me to sleep on the street? Ethan, don't be so cruel. That night, I gave myself to him. Maybe he didn't want it, but I wanted to give it. I had nothing else to offer, no other way forward. I held him tightly, sobbing as he responded with both tenderness and anguish. He kissed me. If you're so scared, why do this? I didn't answer. I just wept. When he carried me to the shower, I leaned against his chest. Ethan, let me stay with you for 5 years, okay? If you don't want me, I'll leave any time. He paused mid-step. I gripped his arm. Is that not enough? In a hoarse voice, he replied, okay. Ethan was a very, very good person. My sister's condition worsened day by day. Even consultations with specialists couldn't save her. She weakly held my hand and asked where the money for her treatment had come from. My boyfriend gave it, I told her. When Ethan came to visit her, my sister asked me to leave the room. I didn't know what they talked about. All I knew was that when he called me back in, my sister said to me, Lily, none of us want to see you live like this. Think more about yourself, and be a little happier. Only then can I rest easy knowing you'll be okay. I couldn't stop crying. Death doesn't retreat in the face of tears. Tears are the most useless thing in the world. Ethan stayed by my side as I handled my sister's funeral arrangements. Afterward, I was a hollow shell of myself, drifting aimlessly. Ethan held my hand as we placed a bouquet of hyacinths on her grave. A symbol of eternal remembrance. Ethan asked me why I ran away. I didn't know. Maybe because he deserved to be with someone who loved him. I didn't love him. That was too unfair. When I woke up, I was in his arms again. My head rested on his arm, and he had me wrapped securely in his embrace. He was still asleep, but instinctively kissed my forehead. Good morning, baby, he murmured. Perhaps he was dreaming of something from long ago. Suddenly, I felt like crying. I hugged him tightly, burying my face in his chest to escape my emotions. I held him so tightly that he woke up. He hugged me back. Baby, it's been a long time since you cried. Melody said you used to cry all the time, that you'd start tearing up the moment you were upset. I've never seen it. Noticing something was off, he added, not counting in bed. The mood was ruined by his comment. I inexplicably chuckled. He had made me cry countless times, so many that I'd lost count. It was as if he had some strange obsession with making me cry. He wouldn't stop until he saw my tears. I mumbled, you like seeing me cry? You're awful. He wiped away my tears. From now on, cry only for me, okay? I smeared my tears and snot all over his shirt, and he cupped my face to clean me up. There. Baby, don't cry. I sniffled and asked, don't you think this is unfair? What's unfair? I bit my lip. I don't love you. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his gaze. And you don't love anyone else either. If it's the same with everyone, why not choose me? Baby, we're perfect for each other in every way. He emphasized the words in all aspects, and my ears started to burn. Well, it did seem like a good match. I hesitated for a moment. You're a good man. I don't want to hold you back. Marry me, Ethan said. If we're married, you won't be holding me back. He gently placed his hand on my stomach. How about we bring this little one into the world? I'll love both of you. When we returned to New York, Ethan took me to the hospital for a follow-up. The results came back normal. He frowned. My wife is pregnant. The doctor explained, no contraceptive method is 100% effective. I tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Don't make it hard for the doctor. Even with a 99.9% success rate, there's still that 0.1% possibility. Maybe it was fate. I thought of the sweet little bundle from my dream. Could that be my child? Getting pregnant out of wedlock wasn't ideal. Ethan skipped the proposal, the engagement, and the wedding, and dragged me straight to get a marriage license. Holding the marriage certificate in my hands, I felt dazed. I couldn't quite process how I ended up married. Ethan was overjoyed and immediately posted on social media. Everyone congratulated us. Some asked why they hadn't been invited to the wedding and how we were already married. Ethan patiently replied, the wedding is being planned. We got the license first, because I was afraid my wife would run away. The comments section was filled with laughter. I stared at the cheerful comments, lost in thought. It seemed like everyone naturally assumed we would get married. No one found it abrupt. Not long after, Ethan's mom sent me a generous cash gift. Meanwhile, Ethan took a call. On the other end, his mom was chattering non-stop. Weren't you planning to propose? How did you two skip everything and go straight to the license? Listen, son, just because you've got the license doesn't mean you can skip the formalities. Girls value these things. You can skip the engagement, but the wedding is a must. Ethan, resting his head on my lap, explained, Lily had an unplanned pregnancy. Waiting until after the wedding would take too long. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a lowered voice. Son, tell me honestly, did you do this on purpose? Don't use the child to tie her down. That's unethical. I was sitting right there, hearing everything loud and clear. Ethan rubbed his forehead. It was really an accident. Do I seem like the kind of person who'd do something so unethical? Silence. Then came a single word, yes. Ethan was visibly speechless and hung up the phone. He buried his head against my stomach. Baby, I got scolded. You need to comfort me. How should I comfort you? I asked. Baby, kiss me, he said, taking my hand in his. I leaned down to give him a light peck on the forehead. Not enough, he said, tilting his head up. Keep going. I was stunned. How could he be so shameless? No way. I already kissed you. That's enough, not acceptable. Do it again. Kiss me, he insisted, refusing to budge as if he wouldn't get up unless I complied. Left with no choice, I leaned in again. This time, he cupped the back of my head. What started with him lying on my lap somehow ended with me sitting on his. My fingers gripped his shirt as tears welled up in the corners of my eyes from the intensity. He was relentless, as if he wanted to drown me in his passion. Outside, snow fell heavily, blanketing the world in white. The earth and sky seemed to merge in a sea of silver. By the 3rd month of pregnancy, my symptoms had eased. Ethan took me to a resort for a getaway. It was spring, and the gardens were in full bloom. White, pink, and red blossoms filled the air with vibrant colors. One rare morning, I woke up early to find Ethan wasn't by my side. A breeze stirred in the courtyard, sending petals dancing through the air. I opened the door to see waves of flowers stretching to the horizon. At the end of the floral sea, someone was walking toward me. He stopped in front of me and knelt on one knee. From some hidden pocket, he retrieved a small ring box. "Miss Lily," he said, "would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" I frowned in mock confusion. "But I'm already married." He didn't mind at all. "Then let's have an affair, ... How generous of him. I extended my hand, letting him slide the ring onto my finger. "All right then, but let's be careful not to let my husband find out."